Floodwaters there have peaked for now, but Queenslanders are facing vast devastation across their entire state. It's the southeastern corner of Queensland which has seen the worst of the weather and the worst of the damage. Towns across the region affected by the flooding, the Lockyer Valley, Toowoomba, have both almost completely been destroyed. And then the area marked here in yellow, down the river valley in Brisbane, marks the enormous extent of the damage in the state capital of Brisbane, which Queensland's Premier described as resembling a war zone, saying it will take years to rebuild. Much of the city's infrastructure has been destroyed, 12,000 homes were flooded, and nearby towns are still at risk. From Brisbane tonight, our Foreign Affairs correspondent Jonathan Miller has this report.
It's 5:15 a.m, just before dawn. Central Brisbane's awash. The Great Flood's about to peak and there's some frantic last-minute sandbagging. The river is 4.5 metres above dry season water level. Not as high as feared, but high enough. A section of floating riverside walkway, 1,000 tonnes of concrete and steel, breaks loose in the torrent and heads downstream, threatening pylons of Brisbane's two biggest bridges. As day breaks, a quick-thinking tugboat captain nudges the 800-metre-long walkway into midstream and shepherds it safely out to sea. The new dawn reveals how this first world city has fared in this third world style disaster. 12,000 homes completely submerged, a further 13,700 partially inundated, along with 5,000 businesses. It is unbelievable how much water has surged down through Brisbane, and the valleys upstream where raging killer torrents crashed through. Today, Queensland took stock.
As we weep for what we have lost, and as we grieve for family and friends, and we confront the challenge that is before us, I want us to remember who we are. We are Queenslanders. We're the people that they breed tough north of the border. We're the ones that they knock down and we get up again.
50 miles upriver, the Australian Defence Force is combing the devastated Lockyer Valley for bodies of the 61 people still missing. Now that the worst is over in Brisbane, focus is returning to the path of Monday's inland tsunami. There's a grim expectation that the number of dead is certain to rise. These pictures have come to encapsulate the horror of this disaster and have distressed many. A family, James and Jenny Perry and their son Ted, perch on the roof of their vehicle 50 miles west of Brisbane. Jenny and Ted were rescued. When the helicopter returned, both James and the vehicle were gone. James Perry is still listed as missing. At Toowoomba that day, cars were being hurled around in the cataract. Inside one car, a mother and her two boys, 13-year-old Jordan and his 10-year-old brother Blake. The boys were scared of water. Neither could swim. This man tried to rescue them.
It's just terrible, and I just kept telling the boy it was going to be all right, and it just wasn't. But I'm just very, very sorry for himself and his family, and that we couldn't do some more and that get him out. So
Jordan insisted he grab Blake first. Blake survived. Jordan and his mum did not. Despite all the warnings, many residents were still taken by surprise by the rising water, abandoning their properties in a rush with a few clothes and valuables. We're in the suburb of Auchenflower, about 2 kilometres from the central business district of Brisbane. And you can see just total devastation. Most of these properties completely flooded out for street after street after street. There are some people venturing back into their homes to see what's happened to them, but in large part people are very concerned about insurance because there's no clear sign yet as to whether insurance companies are going to fork out for what is essentially an act of God. We happen across a gaggle of teenagers in a dinghy. So you've been in the house you came. That's your house? Yeah. And you just came back for a look, or were you in there the whole time?
Oh no, we just came back for a look. We tried to get like photographs and got like a TV out and just clothes and essentials that we needed to. And so yeah, he took me in. Yeah. I'm staying with him at the moment.
Kelvin, our boatman, one of hundreds of volunteers out helping. He's been ferrying local residents back to their homes.
Anybody wants help, I'm here to help, so Aussie spirit. That's it. Teamwork.
Few have ventured back in here yet, though. We saw hundreds of homes just deserted. We heard a generator running in one of them, though, so we went over.
Hello? Hello, sir. How you doing?
Ivan said he'd got everything upstairs before it flooded. And it wasn't as bad, he said, as the big flood of '74.
I heard your Jenny on, so we thought we'd come and say hello.
Yeah, mate, I'm keeping the fridge going, keep the beer cold, eh?
Ivan said that as long as his fridge stayed on and his beer stayed cold, he could survive any flood. Downtown on Castlemaine Street, the 4X brewery had been swamped overnight, which for Queenslanders is pretty sobering news. But Ivan will doubtless be relieved by Castlemaine's promise that they'll make sure Queensland won't run dry during what's now known as the Big Wet. McDonald's in Milton had also fallen victim to the supersized flood. Today it had become a surf-through for local kayakers and surfies. But the cops weren't impressed and gave them a good dressing down.
So if you get yourself into trouble, okay, you're going to tie up valuable resources to get you out of there. They're actually people in need, okay? We don't need this sort of behaviour.
A spirit of irreverent resilience has kept many Queenslanders afloat. But with an area 5 times the size of the UK declared a disaster zone, the probability that the number of dead will continue to rise, and with billions of pounds worth of property lost, this state has been badly shaken. The flood here in Brisbane, though, wasn't as catastrophic as feared. It had been predicted that the devastation would be even more widespread.
So the worst case scenario has seemingly been averted. And despite a high tide this afternoon, the water level down there is now definitely receding. But the threat has not gone away. Queensland's dams are filled to bursting. And after weeks of heavy rain, the earth is completely waterlogged. So the risk of flooding will remain high in the weeks to come. Meteorologists, meanwhile, are keeping a close eye on a cyclonic storm brewing in the Coral Sea off Queensland's north coast. And the residents of Australia's Sunshine State will be praying to the rain gods for some respite. Jonathan Miller, Channel 4 News, Brisbane.